Hey witches, welcome to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy, a magical living podcast for the busy witch. I'm Morgan, eclectic witch of almost 25 years, Avalon priestess, and busy witch. Here we'll talk all things witchy, from current metaphysical happenings to my busy witch tips and tricks, and everything in the in-between. This podcast is my personal journey, filled with my knowledge, opinions, and unique way of looking at the world. Join me as I weave the magical and the mundane in every episode. Hey witches, welcome back to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy. I'm Morgan, and today I am talking about spells. Should you write your own or use pre-made? So this month in the Ink Spirit Coven, we're working on spell writing, and I realized how amazing of a podcast episode this would be with a twist. Today's episode will be about spells and spell writing, but more specifically, my thoughts on writing your own spells versus using pre-made spells. All right, so just a little bit of a backstory to show kind of my evolution of thoughts on spells over the years, because I have been doing this for about 25 years now, and I evolve with the times. I evolve as I learn information. I'm always absorbing knowledge. I'm always listening to podcasts, I'm always reading, and over the years, things have shifted, and sometimes they shift back. So back in the day, spell kits that we sold in our shop came with no spell instructions at all, and this was for years. I actually wrote in each listing that the spell kits came with no instructions because magic comes from within. That was like the little disclaimer that I put in there. Now, the reason that our kits did not come with spell instructions for the better part of the majority of the time my shop has been open is because when we were exclusively on Etsy, back in the day, people bought the spell kit, performed the spell that was included. Okay, so they, for a very short time, did include spells. And if the spell, quote unquote, didn't work, then we would end up getting a bad review for the kit. So I was like, okay, this happened a few times. And I said, all right, I'm done. Pull the spell out of the spell kit. Put the disclaimer on the listing that says these spell kits do not have any type of spell with them. They are just the components that you would need to perform any type of spell of your choosing. And that's how we started selling them. Now, what ended up happening is we ended up with bad reviews for the kit anyway, because no spell was included, despite clearly stating it in the listing. So the moral of the story here is that you're damned if you do and damned if you don't on Etsy. That's the moral of the story. It's not the moral of the story. But in 2016, we moved over after the Etsy witch hunt of 2015. It's a thing. Google it. That's when I started my website. And in 2016, I think we exclusively went off of Etsy. It went directly to the website. And things have been better. We tried Etsy again for a little while. I think it was last year. And then in true Etsy fashion, they deactivated all of our listings for violating some kind of something, which I wasn't violating. And I'm just done with Etsy. The extremely toxic environment. I apologize to those who are listening who sell on Etsy. It's an extremely toxic environment. Anyway, so we completely pulled our spell kits for a while. These were the spell kits that did not include any spell. And we revamped them into our spell kit tubes, and then we relaunched, okay? And this time, they come with a general spell instructions, as well as an incantation to say. It's a cute little 4-line, simple incantation that I wrote, and that has gone over beautifully. Shameless plug here. You can find our spell kits on our website, inkgoddesscreations.com, under the kits and sets category. They're only $19.50 each. They contain a spell, an oil, herbs, candle, gemstone, and a spell bag, and they come in this cute little cardboard tube, which, of course, cardboard is biodegradable, so you could always fill the tube with spell components and bury it if you want to, like not these spell components, but like something else if you ever wanted to, or if you ever wanted to, put a bitch in the ground during the waning moon. You don't have to use a glass jar. If you want something biodegradable, you can put it into the little spell tubes. Anyway, shameless plug done. Okay, so why do I think this shift occurred? Okay, so I believe that there was energetic reasons why this shift occurred, and now our spell kits are quote unquote acceptable and get amazing reviews. Number one, we're off of Etsy. Again, just a horribly toxic business. Number two, we gave a new packaging. I mean, you put something in a tube, it's kind of cool. But number three, the instructions. So we started including not only instructions with the spell kits, like generalized instructions, but this incantation. So the instructions are absolutely great for beginner witches. They love them. And experienced witches use what's helpful, maybe try something different that they're not normally used to, and then they dismiss what's rest. So they fit both categories, whether you're a beginner or seasoned witch. And then number four, the incantation rhymes, you guys. That's my personal favorite thing to do when I write spells, when I write incantations. And I'm going to tell you the difference between a spell and an incantation here in a few minutes. But yeah, the spells that are included are 4 lines, super simple, super powerful. They rhyme, so they're just cute. And so that's why I think they became a little bit more appealing to people, especially like when you buy one and you see everything that's in there, you're like, oh my gosh, and the spell, again, rhymes. It's so cute. So you come back and you buy a different one. So now that I've done a little bit of backstory as far as my evolution because I mean, it was a personal evolution. It wasn't just the reviews, like, oh, we got a bad review, let's pull it. Oh, we got another bad review, let's change it again. I really, for a while, like when I first started out on Etsy, I was like, okay, I'm going to give people spells, and never thought about the fact that someone would perform it. And if it didn't work, they would blame me, the person writing the spell, because that thought never crossed my mind, because I understand that magic comes from within. I understand that sometimes timing is off. I understand that sometimes you're asking for something that is not in your future, is not in your energetic space. So like I understood all of this. So I guess I assumed that every other witch would do it or would assume the same thing. But that is not the case. So at first I was like, okay, I'm going to give people the spell because this spell worked for me. And so I'm going to give it to them. And then when it didn't work for people and we got bad reviews, it blew my mind. But I was like, okay, so then we don't give them a spell because magic comes from within. So then they can write their own and then we won't have this issue. But that pissed people off too. So, but that was at the time my thought on that. Like, okay, well, my spell didn't work for people because that's true. Not all spells are going to work for every person. So you just should write your own. That's what you should do as a witch. And so we went that route for a little while. So my thoughts on spells and spell writing evolved as I went through this journey of selling spell kits on Etsy and our website. So to get to the main topic, spells, should you write your own or use pre-made? Here's my definitive answer. Drum roll, please. Either one. I know, huge buildup. Did that on purpose. Okay. So let's run over real quick the difference between a ritual, a spell, and an incantation. Because even though for some of you, you're like, Morgan, you are saying the same thing, there are very small differences between them that you can either choose to acknowledge or you can choose to be like, it's all the same. Either way is completely fine, okay? So let's start at the top. A ritual is any kind of spiritual ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order. And that's like the definition out of the dictionary. But we all know that you can have a morning ritual, you can have an evening ritual that has nothing to do with spirituality. Your morning ritual can include your shower, your coffee, your makeup, how you get dressed, whatever. And then your evening ritual could be a bath and bed and reading a book or whatever. And they don't have to be spiritual at all. But that is like, so if you're thinking on a huge scale, that's a ritual, okay? But rituals can be used for anything. So if you're doing a spiritual ritual, You can use it to honor your ancestors. You can use it to do a gratitude ritual just to express your gratitude to your deities or whatever. You can do a dedication ritual. You can do any type of spiritual ceremony can be a ritual, okay? You don't have to necessarily be performing a spell within that ritual. So if you're looking at a ritual as being the big umbrella of magical practice, okay, you have a ritual. Underneath that, a little bit smaller, is a spell. And the spell is any practice or formula that has magical intention. Okay, so if you are aiming to send your intention out into the world and perform magic for a specific reason, that is a spell. And all of the actions that you perform for that intention are all part of your spell. Okay, so big umbrella ritual, smaller under that. If your ritual contains a magical intention that you are setting or sending into the world, then your ritual has a spell in it. Okay, so a little bit under that. Then go down one step, a little bit smaller. Incantations are a series of words used within a spell. So whatever you are speaking or writing within your spell to pull your intention together, to send it into the world, to raise energy for your intention, that can be called an incantation, okay? So that's kind of the different levels. A lot of witches use spell and incantation interchangeably, and that is perfectly fine. There are some witches that think the word incantation is too Hollywood, and I get that too. But there's the difference between the three. So basically, a ritual can be anything, honoring, dedication. If your ritual has a magical intention, you are performing a spell. And then if your spell has written or spoken words within it, that's an incantation within your spell, within your ritual. All right, there's the breakdown. So a spell technically includes all of the actions that you are performing for a magical intention. Okay, so if you are in there casting a circle, calling your deities or your elements, stating your intention, raising energy, sending it out into the world, performing gratitude, grounding, all of that can be considered a spell. A lot of you are like, but that's a ritual. And that can also be a ritual. But a ritual doesn't have to have a specific magical intention that you're sending into the world. A ritual can just be, you can cast a circle, you can call your deities, you can do all of that, but then you're just honoring your deities. Maybe you're giving them an offering or you're saying thank you. So that's not technically a spell where you're trying to manipulate energy for your own purpose. Maybe you're a person who casts a spell, does all of that to sit in meditation for a divination purpose. And then therefore your ritual has a divination purpose, not a spell purpose. So I hope that's pretty clear. In my opinion, when we're talking about spells, considering that that includes all of the actions that you perform in order to send your magical intention into the world, I think that it is absolutely beautiful and great, especially for beginner witches, to use a format given by others for a spell. I think it is wonderful. How else do you figure out what resonates for you and what doesn't? Like if you are a beginner witch and you have no idea how to perform a spell at all, how are you supposed to write one to perform? You generally will look in a book, or you will go on Pinterest, or you will go to your favorite website or your favorite podcast, whatever. And you'll be like, what are the steps of a spell? You'll get an outline, and then that's what you use to perform. Okay, so I think that it is amazing to use someone else's spell, especially until you get your own honed down. Your own, like you're performing someone else's spell that you got out of a book, you got off of Pinterest, whatever, and you're going through it and you're like, oh, I don't like this calling the elements this way. Ooh, I'm going to have to do some more research. but you don't know that you don't like it. Like maybe on paper it looks beautiful and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna pick up the candle and I'm gonna walk around my circle to call in the element of fire, and then I'm gonna pick up my feather and I'm gonna walk around the circle to call in the element of air. And then in the middle of doing this, in the middle of your ritual, you pick up that candle, start to walk around your circle to cast a circle, and you're bumping into shit. You're like, this is not going to work for me. You don't know until you try, okay? So I highly recommend to find a format that you think you'll like, perform it, see what you like, see what you don't like, and adjust accordingly, okay? Especially for beginner witches. Now, I am a firm believer, even as a witch who has been practicing for almost 25 years, I am open to learning. When I started my Avalonian studies with Mara Freeman last year, oh, you guys, the first thing that we taught, like they start at the beginning. So they're like, okay, this is a ritual. This is the ritual format for that line of Avalonian tradition. I do it, okay? I still do it. I'm about halfway through the course. It's been a year. It still does not resonate with me. So I'm going to continue through the course until I am done with this first course with her, which is the course of Avalonian magic. And I don't know. I have not decided whether or not I'm going to continue with it because it's a lot. It's very ritualistic. It's very almost high magic. It's very structured. And if you have listened longer than this episode, you know that there's not a lot of structure to me. I kind of do what I want, when I want, how I want. So because of that reason, I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Like I'm not throwing it out because maybe, after more than a year of doing rituals and spells and stuff this way, maybe it'll become second nature, and maybe trying to do it without it will feel weird. Like, I don't know yet. But I think that even if you've been practicing for 20, 30, 40 years, we can always learn. We can always, so if you hear something, try it, try something new, see if it works, see if it doesn't work. So that's not really just a tip for beginner witches. To me, it's a tip for all witches. Okay. So there's my thought on a spell, which spell, ritual, however you want to put it, but the actual ceremony that you'll be performing or the steps that you'll be performing to cast your spell, I 100% think that you can use someone else's, okay? Especially until you figure out what works for you and what doesn't. Now, if we're talking specifically about incantations as spells, which is your written part of your spell, then what do I think? Do I think you should write your own? Do I think you should use a pre-made spell out of a book or out of a spell kit or off of Pinterest? Again, I think either works. There are definitely pros and cons to you writing your own spells versus using ones that you read in a book or read on the internet or get within an Ink Goddess Creation spell kit. A pro to writing your own spells or incantations is that you're able to write those words specifically for your intent. Whereas spells or incantations that are found on the internet or found in a book tend to be generalized, So like if you're doing a money drawing spell, you might find one, or even in our spell kit, it's very generalized. It might say something about I'm open to the flow of abundance, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you need something specific. Maybe your car broke down and you need $585 to fix this part of your car. So you may want to write a spell that specifically incorporates the amount of money that you need and for what purpose. So that's a really good pro for writing your own, okay? You can try rhyming. Yeah, it's fun. You can try writing in another language. I took 4 years of Latin in high school. Latin is a dead language. You don't actually speak it. It is a written language. So for me personally, because of my ties to having had taken 4 years of Latin, I like to write my spells in Latin sometimes, which If you have looked at the theme for this month's Ink Goddess Creations box, I got a little nerdy. The theme is Seize the Magical Day, and underneath it you will see Carpe Magicus Diem, which means seize the magical day. So that's my nerd moment. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, if you write your own, you can experiment a little bit more. You can rhyme. You can just open yourself up and see what words flow to you. Cons to writing your own spells. We're not all writers. Let's face it. You could sit there and you could want so badly to write this cute rhyming spell and nothing comes to mind. Or you're over here like, what rhymes with foot? Like, what? Wait a minute. Why do I even have foot in the spell? It's a freaking money drawing spell. You know what I mean? So writing is not everyone's cup of tea. There should be no shame if you are using someone else's spell, okay? And here's my thoughts on that, okay? If you find a spell or intention, if you're reading a book of spells, if you're reading a blog, if you're reading on Pinterest, if you're listening to a podcast, if you're listening to a guided meditation, wherever, and you find a spell or an incantation that gives you goosebumps. Goosebumps are affirmation bumps. This is a nod from your higher self or your energetic source, your guides, whatever you want to call it, that what you're reading, hearing, or seeing resonates with you, okay? So if you find a spell or an incantation and you're reading it and you start to get goosebumps, then it resonates with your energy, and that's the purpose of a spell. A spell, whether you write it, or an incantation, whether you write it or whether someone else writes it, it is your energy being attached to your intention and sending it out in the world. And affirmation bumps or goosebumps are your body, your energetic way of being like, this meshes with me. What I am reading right now meshes with my energy. They're syncing together. So therefore, that's going to help you attach your energy to it, and it's going to make your spell powerful because it's already resonating with your energy, okay? So I say, if you find a spell, find a ritual, find an incantation, something that gives you goosebumps when you read it, hear it, see it, whatever, then use it. And you don't have to use it specifically. Like, you get one of our spell kits, you read the 4 little cute lines that are in there, and you're like, this is really cute, but what if I worded this second line this way and it still rhymes? Then do it. Do what resonates with you. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you come alive as a witch. Okay, because that's the power in your magic. The more that it makes you smile, the more that you feel it in your bones and in your soul, and you want to shout it from the rooftops, then that makes your spell more powerful. And that's what matters. Okay, so that's what I have for you all today. That's my thought. I know, big thing. Should you write your own? Should you use someone else's? And I tell you to do either. Do whatever gives you those affirmation bumps. Do whatever resonates with your energy. And more importantly, do whatever inspires you to take action on your spell. Because let's face it, intention, you hear it a lot, okay? Intention is everything. Your intention is not everything. Your intention is the first step. And that's setting your intention, putting your energy, but you have to do shit after that. Magic is not like a thing where you just send it out in the world and then you sit back and wait. You have to do things to move towards it. You know, a lot of people get into witchcraft because they think, they see it in movies. They think, oh my God, all I have to do is just cast this spell and then such and such will happen. That's not the case, okay? Sometimes it can be, but generally speaking, it is not. And that is a prime example of that is saying like, oh, I'm going to do a spell to win the lottery. And then someone says, oh, well, how many numbers did you play? You're like, I didn't play any numbers. Like, you can't, you can't get what you want without putting in some work, you know? So your intention is the beginning. Your intention is not everything. But the more energy that you attach to your intention, the more that it resonates with you, then the further out into the universe it'll go. But then the more it inspires you to take action and to do things that support that intention that you just sent out. Because the more that you do to also support that intention, the quicker your magic will work. Or the quicker you'll realize, oh shit, I need to switch directions a little bit. Let me pivot my spell. Let me pivot the direction I'm heading because this is not resonating with me. So intention is the first part of it, but you still have to be inspired to take action after that, because the more energy that you feed to it, the more things that you do to feed this intention, the bigger that it'll grow and the quicker or easier it will manifest in the real world. All right. So I started out by telling you that this month in the Ink Spirit Coven, we are working on spell writing. And I'm going to end by telling you that too, because our lesson is coming up this weekend on, if I knew a date, that would be great. Whatever the Sunday is. So it would be like the 19th of May, if you're listening to this when the episode comes out. But the lesson and the workshop are back to back this month because of Mother's Day. So in the lesson, I'm going to be teaching Ink Spirit Coven members how to write effective spells, and the power of the throat chakra. We already did the power of words at the beginning of this season, so back in March. But we're finishing up in May with the element of air with our spell writing course. And then a week after that, on the following Sunday, we're doing a spell writing workshop where I'm going to give everyone writing prompts, and we're going to set like a little timer, open ourselves up, see what happens, see what comes out. And that way you can try a few different ways of writing spells, or we're going to tap into a few different things when it comes to writing. But we're all going to open ourselves up on Zoom. We're going to be in a sacred space. And yeah, the lessons are on Zoom. The workshops are on Zoom. I teach and facilitate both of them. So if you want to join us, then you can head to inkedspirit.com to learn more and sign up there. We're moving next month in June into the element of fire. So we're going to take all of the air element, the setting your intentions, the meditation, visualization, the spell writing, and then we're going to move it over into the element of fire, where we're going to empower. We're going to set shit on fire. It's really fun. Fire, I have so much fire element in my chart. So like, that's one of my dominant elements. And I love the teaching about the element of fire. But that's what we're going to be doing June, July, and August on the Rewilding Your Inner Witch journey for this year in the Ink Spirit Coven. So I'd love to have you join us. But I want to thank you all for listening, for being here every week, for giving me feedback on especially Instagram. Thank you for those who reach out and let me know how much the podcast means to you, because I super enjoy doing it. I'm very grateful that it does help people and that it resonates with people. And your feedback does let me know that I'm on the right track and that I'm talking about things you all want to hear about. So let me know what you think of this episode. And until next week, I will see you all then. Bye.